Spook,
Yes.
what have you got there?
Well, Sly, with the release of the magpie button coming out this week to much applause, I had the technical team at the Rant come up with a device that I'd like to call the CSM button.
So what does that do?
Well, you ask it a question, when I push the button, it'll give you an answer.
What are Collingwood's chances of finals this year?
Collingwood shits me.
Can't argue with that.
Should Nathan Buckley remain coach?
Let's ask.
Collingwood shits me.
Again, I can't argue with that.
Should we bring back Eddie Maguire as president?
Good question.
Collingwood shits me.
Fairly consistent.
I don't know if there's going to be a market for that.
Yeah, maybe we got it wrong. Why don't we try the official
Collingwood button.
magpie button?
Cool. So what happens when you push the button there?
I'm not entirely sure. Should we give it a go?
Let's go for it. Welcome to the Collingwood Rant. I am Sly.
And I am CSM Spook.
Well, Spook,
Yes.
I think we might have lost to the Gold Coast Suns.
Did it come as a great surprise to you?
It actually did come as a surprise. I don't know, when I say great surprise, I kept thinking,
It wasn't a great surprise. I've had great surprises before.
given where the Suns stand in the great scheme of things at the moment, I thought we'd get over the top of them at some point.
You did tip them to win last week.
Well, it's the first time I've tipped Collingwood this year.
Yeah, you tracking well.
Oh, well, I've got all the other ones right. I don't even want to go into the game. This is a clusterfuck of epic proportions. All the hallmarks of what's happened at Collingwood are there on display. The poor skills, poor decision making, the poor shape around the ball, terrible forward entries, weird selections. I mean, Jay Rantel as your medical sub. Why would you play a kid there?
Well, no, you got to look at this logically. He dominates in the midfield in the VFL.
Yeah.
He gets a call up, so you play him at high half forward, and then your reward for not performing well in a position you probably never played in before, the following week you get to be made medical sub. Your career is based on these moves.
I'm not being facetious. Josh Thomas is the perfect medical sub.
You're being facetious, aren't you?
Because you're not really losing anything from on-field. And if you've got to bring him on for like a quarter, 2 quarters, whatever, at least he's got experience and some background in that, maybe he'll have a little bit of an impact coming on. He's, an older player and all that sort of stuff. I mean, that position is really tailor-made for someone getting on in their career who might actually benefit from playing less football, but consistently playing.
I think we'd all benefit from less football from Thomas.
Like I said, I don't want to go into the game too much because...
But you will.
No, I'm not going to go into it.
I'll go on.
What is broken at this fucking club that's now becoming apparent for everyone?
The pertinent question would be, what isn't broken at this club?
All right, so the player... You've said this the whole year. You said this back in round 1 when we lost to the Bulldogs.
Oh, this should be good.
You didn't feel they were playing for Buckley.
No, still don't.
And that's actually starting to now show up. Not saying everyone. Obviously, Brody Myercheck had a good game. Josh Dacos had a good game. A few players tried, like Jack Crisp and that. Brody Grundy looks a total shell of a man.
Burned out, desolate man.
He played... Well, he was against 2 novice journeymen, nobody, ruckman, who probably killed him around ground. Darcy Moore looks... I mean, obviously he's not playing a lot forward, but geez, again, who is at Collingwood? He looks injured, and Pendlebury looks like age is catching up. Sidebottom looks totally ineffectual, and then you have this swath of mid-range players who just aren't really doing enough. Guys like Braden Maynard, Noble tries, Crisp tried. Hoskin Elliott, I thought probably had a better game for Hoskin Elliott, but again, that's the standards now down here. What do they do now? At what point did Collingwood just say, this is it?
Do you want me to get the button again?
If you can nuke us. What I actually want to look at, media, the last few weeks, they're all coming, or not all, the bulk of them are coming out saying, Re-sign Nathan Buckley.
It staggers me the amount of leeway that Buckler's getting at the moment.
Kane Corns wrote an article, or was quoted as an article. He was on SEN, their website, not radio station.
Was he trolling with this one? He likes to troll.
I don't know what he was doing. So this is Kane Corns. Buckley is partway through his 10th season in charge, and there is a myth circulating that 10 years is too long for a coach at one club.
A myth.
A myth.
A myth. What would that be propagated against? The fact that we don't have too many 10-year non-successful coaches in the caper?
Get back to that in a minute. Who hasn't won a premiership? I wonder why that is. Why do people believe that? And do we discard coaches too quickly? If 10 years is too quick, then fuck me. I don't know what.
This is the media who hasn't set any precedents about baying for blood any other year.
Yep.
Year, decade, century.
I know someone will address it. Malthouse got 12 years. In his 10th year, he hadn't won the flag. Technically, they fired him in his 10th year. It just took 2 years to take effect because they said, okay, Buckley's now going to be his successor and it's going to occur in 2 years' time regardless of what happened, which is what they did. But in terms of comparisons, Malthouse took a wooden spoon team to 2 grand finals, lost, decided that wasn't going to cut it, rebuilt, and then from 2006 pretty much trended up. 2007 they made a prelim, 2008 they took a few steps back, 2009 prelim, 2010 flag. So if you're just going to go purely on form, and particularly if you look at the way they played, 2007 they lost Nathan Buckley to retirement, James Clement to retirement.
There's a thought.
There's a few others there. So there was like a very transitional period also where the new blood took over. You tended to see the way they were playing. In 2009, they played for a lot of that year with the effectiveness where they used the press the following year. So you really saw what was happening. You really saw the build taking shape in front of you. Buckley took over a grand final premiership list coming out of a grand final 2011. 2 years they dropped positions, and then 4 years they missed the finals. 1 year they came back to a grand final, and then 2 years they've gone back down. They're going to go a lot further down this year. Based on the existing... I mean, and this is the one thing that I hate about what the fuck the media are saying. It's like, people aren't making this determination on what's happening this year, this 1-6 record that we currently have. They're making it on what we've seen in the past. What we saw 214 to 217, what we saw 219 that was starting to unravel, what we saw in 220, and what we're seeing now. For whatever reason, Nathan Buckley and his coaching brains trust of Robert Harvey and Brent Sanderson got there a little bit into the tenure, but...
It's a contradiction in terms, brains trust.
Brains mistrust. They just can't get this game plan to click consistently, other than 1 year in 2018. We keep seeing the same sort of stuff. They lack shape, they lack skills, they make poor decisions, they try hard, they're not even spirited now. Previously, they've always been spirited under Buckley.
No, they're flat as at the moment.
It's a very much endeavour-based game plan, other than 2018, where it was this chaos sort of Richmond type of game plan, which they've abandoned, because why would you use that? Was the 1 year you played well?
Nah, we got no room for success.
Michael Gleeson wrote an article, and he said, as part of this article, he was one of the few critical people. He said, the players look tentative and worried about making a mistake, for as if all teams playing badly, they lose freedom and flow in their game. Ordinarily, though, youthful teams such as Collingwood with 5 players with fewer than 5 games in them play with excitement and dare. Collingwood look burdened. Collingwood need to release the shackles and simplify their game. If the coaching brains mistrust have not worked this out by year 10, why would you give them another 2 years?
I can't answer that, and I'm not even going to try and answer that because it defies any form of logic that I think I might even possess. See, the thing is, looking at this sort of externally, I think there's got to be 2 reasons that the media are so pumped on keeping Bucks at Collingwood. The first one is obviously, look, he's genuinely a nice guy. He probably gets along well with everyone. They feel probably a little bit defensive towards him, and maybe they're just sort of going into bat, that sort of mate structure. I don't know. The second one is that these people work in the media. Nothing sells papers more than disarray Collingwood. You keep him in that job. Geez, your job for the next 2 years looks easy because you can expect that from next year, and we're rebuilding, and if we retain Bucks for another 2 years, we're going to plummet badly. Everyone's going to be angry. There's all sorts of hatred already coming out now that'll just be amplified. The media just sit back and pick at the bones of the carcass of this and will thrive for years. And I purposely think that some of that motivation to push him is in that direction.
Ex-player watch, which I'll factor into this.
That was a fair old segue to that.
Yeah, I'm going to get back to the Bucklands. Tigers defeated Dogs by 22 points. Trelaw, 15 kicks, 12 handballs, 5 marks, 5 tackles, 74.1% disposal efficiency.
0.1%.
74%. So he's disposing the ball well for all the people who kept telling me, oh no, he used the ball horribly. Saints smashed the Hawks by 69 points. Phillips, 8 kicks, 12 handballs, 3 marks, 3 tackles, 75% disposal efficiency.
Bit more butchery there.
Melbourne defeated Roos by 30 points. Stevenson, 13 kicks, 5 handballs, 7 marks, 2 tackles, 1 behind, 77.8% disposal efficiency. It was speculated at the time, how was exiting these 3 players in the circumstances in which they were exited? I mean, people kept telling me, oh no, this happens at clubs all the time. And I kept saying, no, it doesn't. It really doesn't. You know, if you want to compare it to like Essendon, who lost 3 players last year with Danaher, Fantasia and Sard all leaving, they all wanted to go. They all said, fuck off Essendon, we're out of here. We're off to greener pastures, we believe. These 3 guys didn't want to go. They wanted to stay. So, totally different circumstances. So, people who fucking make those comparisons, you're so fucking wrong that I cannot believe it. And then you compare it to Giants who've had, again, players wanting to leave for greener pastures. The only one I know was, I think it was Dylan Shield a few years ago. Or I can't. One of the ones that went into Essendon, he had a year to run on his contract. And they said, well, look, just go fine because we can't afford one player. Collingwood pushing out these 3 players. There was a lot of speculation what was going to happen to the playing group. The defenders are going, oh, it happens all the time. You know, players are traded out. Again, not in those circumstances.
Don't forget that the players wanted these players out.
And that's the other thing. So the way it played out in the media, particularly towards Adam Trelaw, I mean, you get Adam Trelaw and he's got that puppy dog face and you think, how could you ever be mean to that guy? And you're a bastard, Adam. And you come out and you say, I love that club. I wish I finished my career there. I love the players. What a sociopath this man is, isn't he? No, he seems like a fucking awesome, honest, heartfelt guy, and he's declaring his love for the club, and people are still just taking pot shots at him, and you sort of look at them going, how is that going to affect... This guy's proclaiming his love for you, and you're going, we don't think you're going to be able to cope with your wife in Queensland next year. We're so worried about your mental health, we want to get rid of you for pick 5. How the fuck does this play in the playing group? I think we're seeing now that it's resonating from the playing group, and there's players obviously there who have had very fractured trust with not only the coaching staff, but also the admin who oversaw all this.
It's the whole kit and caboodle. There is change coming at Collingwood. I think it's very evident. People naturally tend to resist change a fair bit. And in the resisting of it, it's also you're coupling in the maybe we don't have that much faith in what the coach is telling us after the debacle this year. You know that you've got uncertainty coming. Everything is impacting upon this playing group in that area. It's not just that one thing with
it's a big build-up.
It's the whole pie.
But this is the thing.
It's everything coming at different angles.
I don't want to lay this all on Buckley because he, as I said before, he didn't oversee the salary cap as far as I know. He didn't sign the contracts. All that. That came from above. And they determined the strategy of let's overload the cap. And this is the ridiculous thing too, which probably, I'll go on about how bullshit this strategy is. But if you look at the strategy, okay, so let's work it out. Coming out of a premiership, the club said, let's change the coach. Let's go with this guy. Okay, that's your decision. At the time I thought, okay, this could work, or this should work. He struggled with the playing group. There were issues there. He then traded out. 4 years, you missed the finals. You then apparently overload the cap for premiership contention for 2 years. I'll give you 3 years. And then you're rebuilding already again. And when we're going to see finals again? Another 4 years?
Oh, at this stage, yeah, you wouldn't think.
I mean, the problem is too, with this playing group, you look at it, you have 24 players with under 50 games, and I think it was 17 under 20, and I think it was 14 under 7 games. And that's only because Rusco has 7 games. You actually 13 under 4 games. So, and now the games are being a little bit inflated because people are playing fucking the medical sub, and they're not getting on at all, like McCreary and Rantel. You have such a underbelly of inexperienced players, and then you're going to have guys like Pendlebury and Sidebottom and Roughhead and Howe and Greenwood and Main all go out. You got Grundy at 28, you got Adams at about 27, 28, you got Crisp at about 27, 28. So let's say we all go to the draft. Let's say even we had the top 5 picks next year, which we don't because we traded it to the GWS. But even if we had the top 5 picks next year, it's going to take 2-3 years to get games into these guys. So by 2023, 24, all those guys I mentioned will either be gone or will be in the twilights of their careers. So then the new disparity opens up in terms of experience and the list profile and what positions you need to address. And you have no guarantee that guys like Darcy Moore and Jordan De Goey won't just say at the end of next year,
I've had enough.
You guys are in the bottom. I'm going to go to a club that's in contention. And they'll jump. And then you've created new holes. The list these people have manufactured, you've totally fucked it up. You've actually heard it to the extent, people going, oh, there'll be a quick turnaround. I can't see that actually happening. It's not like you go back to 2006 to 2010 when they...
I wouldn't mind going back there.
Oh, I'd love to go back there. Where they brought in Pendles and Thomas and Reed and Brown and Beams and Sidey and Dawes and all these players, and they were getting games into them while guys like Bucks and Burns and Lacuria and Wakeland and Clement and Rocker, they were all on the way out. So you had this seamless transition. That's not happening here. Buckley lost his opportunity to play kids last year, which I thought would have been the optimum year to play.
We didn't play anyone really, did we?
Oh, Risco got about 3 games,
yeah, that was it.
and that was it. But meanwhile, kept pumping games into Hoskin Elliott and into Thomas. Whereas you thought, well, these guys are only getting 10 possessions. Surely that's the time to give Rantel a run, or Bianco a run, or Nathan Murphy, or whatever the case. That's when we should have been pumping games to the place. We didn't. And if you go back to 99 again, there's another transitional period. I mean, Malthouse inherited a side that had the 2 rockers, Presti. Buckley was the best player in the competition at the time. Lacuria, Burns, Nick Davis, Andrew Shawbull, Paul Williams. He actually inherited a good core. Where the fuck is that now? You might say like De Goey and Moore, but again, the way we have this, De Goey just hasn't realised his talent from 2018.
No.
I recall in 2019, media were comparing Petrarca and De Goey, and everyone's going, De Goey is so far ahead of Petrarca. It's an unfair comparison. It's now flipped. Petrarca is so far ahead of De Goey that you're looking at De Goey and going, what's gone wrong here? And I put that down to the coaching staff. I think whatever their instruction to the players is, it's grounded out his natural instinctiveness and flair, and he just looks like someone who's actually a really good comparison is Dane Swan. Dane Swan under Mick Malthouse up to 211 was just this ubiquitous midfielder who kept getting the ball and was dangerous and did awesome things. Under Buckley, for the most part, he just looked like a drone. He had a couple of good Anzac days, but otherwise he was getting 30 possessions, but he never seemed as damaging. He just sort of seemed like he was an accumulator who wasn't doing much damage. In terms of this playing list and where the thing is, so you wouldn't re-sign Buckley next year?
Oh, definitely no.
Would you get rid of him right now if you had the power?
So this is a two-edged sword. The easier answer is yes, because it just feels like you had enough, and anything coming in is going to be the harbinger of some change. You're almost, though, I mean, the reality is you've got to bring in or elevate Sanford or and Harvey into the role. Sanford.
And his son?
Sorry, what's his name? Sanderson.
It's definitely not Sanford.
I'd bring Sanford in, though, because he sounds good. He sounds a lot better than Sanderson. But the thing is, apart from the laughs, you can't see what they're going to do any different. They've been there 100 years under his wing. I mean, you could take a punt on something, but they won't. It's Collingwood. They have to have something with profile there, or to offset that one decision that they're going to make to move him on. So I don't think they will. I mean, they're going to keep him. I think the instruction will be to play out the year, play the kids. Positioning really it doesn't matter, although technically, and I'm sure we're going to talk about this, it does have an impact on things. But you then... But the other issue too is it... Well, unless something miraculous happens in the mid-season draft, you can't even inject any new blood into that. So, well, I'm talking blood with not new blood. That's probably the wrong term. Bringing some experience in from another level. Well, we just don't have any.
Well, you go back to 2001. We'll talk about this a little bit earlier. So, 2000, when Malthouse first came in, he inherited that good core, but then he got rid of all the rest. And I think I can't remember the exact figures, but in the first 2 years he was there, he got rid of like 32 players or something. So he really cut the deadwood. And at the end of 2000, when we'd gone to the draft, and they were really sort of throwing the net far and wide and going for guys who were experimental and all that sort of stuff, and they lacked experience. Then come the end of 2000, they recognised they lacked experience, and they brought in James Clement, Brodie Holland, Carl Steinfort, Shane Wakeland, Jared Malloy. So they brought that experience in. Now, they're not going to be able to address all that in one draft here.
No.
And if they're addressing it in the draft and they're getting the recyclables, I mean, Shane Wakelin was a recyclable at that time because he'd done his Achilles and Sakila thought that was it for his career, but he became a really good fullback. I don't see how Collingwood can fix this list because now we go into what you just mentioned before. You've traded out your first round pick for next year. What did the administration think in terms of trading out that pick? What do you think they thought? What do you think that they believed they were going to give up?
Well, I think this you answer this in two parts. I think we've covered this a little bit, so I won't dwell on it too much. They overinflated what they thought they were going to get in terms of return for the players that they pushed out, which, again, look, that happened before. I don't know when this decision was made to move on the first round pick. It seems like what you were highlighting a little bit earlier, that it seems to be a knee-jerk reaction.
Well, so the PR exercise, because they messed up the exit of those players, and did someone at a higher level say, we need a big draft haul to show that we're actually being proactive, and there's a method to the madness here.
That makes sense after what happened.
How misguided were they to actually believe they'd probably finish top 10, so that pick they were giving up would probably be 10, 11, 12, 13?
Well, I think that is a factor as well. I mean, really, the prime, I think, motivator for offing that pick, and they've really at least been honest about saying this, is that they thought they were going to get shafted no matter what with Dacos. Whether we had pick 1, 2, 3 or whatever, we were going to have to surrender that when somebody bid against him just to get the points to get him. So I think they thought jettisoning that was the better tactic to take. However, though, that was still going back to what I was saying before, is that they wanted to pull in those picks they were going to get for those players. I think that surely was part of the whole strategy.
Yeah.
That giving that away was a sound enough thing to do, but we were going to have these other things sitting there on the sidelines.
But how realistic was it for them to believe that the pick they're giving up is going to probably be 10 or higher, given that they just gutted the list of free players? And in terms of the list, okay, so you look at this, they got rid of Phillips, Treloar and Stevenson, but they also lost Scharenberg, Reid, Beams, Langdon, Varco, even Broomhead. So they've lost like 9, 10 senior players. So what's happened is what the danger existed last year was, hey, we've gotten rid of all these players. If we get 1 or 2 injuries, we're immediately into the youth now. And the problem too is, just when you look at that team that you're fielding, let's say that's your default team, even before you start tapping into the depth, you have guys like Callum Brown and Tyler Brown and Hoskin Elliott and Josh Thomas who are just serial underperformers as it is. So you've already got 4 players in there who you're carrying to an extent, and like they might become good players or whatever. 2 of them might become good players. Josh Thomas is on the other side of that now. But surely you should have been looking again. We've got a core of about good 4 or 5 players. We've got probably about another 8 to 10 role players, but then it's just plummeting. And in that regard, we've got like 15 players who we need to never, ever, ever, ever get injured at this club for us to remain competitive.
Well, that's a likelihood.
And surely someone should have said, well, the probability of that is it's not going to happen. And then we've got to look at the other side of, Maine's already having issues with concussions, and Greenwood's struggling at that age. He's come back from a knee, and Pendle's is 33. So we've already got 3 or 4 players in that core that we're expecting to stand up who we don't know how they're going to fare as they get older. So, again, taking Buckley out of the equation and the coaching staff, who in the football department thought this was a good strategy in any way? Because it makes no sense to me that anyone who looked at it in a measured way could imagine this was going to work.
But that's the thing. I mean, they would have looked at where we finished last year. I mean, for the bulk of last year, we sat in the top 4. We dropped down to the bottom half of the 8. We had a spirited finals win. They obviously thought there was still something with this list that was going to click. Now, you offloaded 3 key components of that in your draft. You had a number of retirees who sort of drifted in and out of the side, but it's still senior experience. They seriously must have thought that they were going to be in a better position this year to still probably finish somewhere in the 8. And they've completely misread. Oh, well, look, maybe.
I mean, the thing with guys like Reid and Varco, I know they weren't, like Reid had constant injury problems.
So did Varks at the end.
And Varks. But the thing was, if you had an injury, if you had a hammy or something like that, let's say like you look at Howe getting injured, and that's 2 to 4 weeks. You'd imagine that Collingwood could be 20 to 40. But You get Howe getting injured. You think, I can bring Reid up for 2 weeks. He'll last 2 weeks and you should fill that spot and he's a senior buddy. You'd hope.
That was a funny joke.
Or Scharenberg. We can bring Scharenberg up. And he'll, I don't know. So I don't know why they suddenly went cold on him because you seemed to figure in their plans early on. But I'm just sort of saying they had senior bodies in there who they could bring in as stopgaps until the other guys got back. Now, again, you're getting injuries, or you're making changes. You bring in Mark Keane. Mark Keane gets suspended. You're bringing in Will Kelly to play that role. And it's like, all right, you have no experience and you've already got an inexperienced underbelly to that side. So now you've got even more inexperience in this side. How's it going to click? And now we're going back to 214, 217. This is exactly what we saw back then, which is what frustrates with the media because they're saying give Buckley another 2 years. It's like, I don't want to watch another 2 years of this shit.
No.
And I don't want to blame Buckley again. The whole football department across the board has to fucking go. The only person who should keep his job at this moment is Graham Wright.
Yep.
Being new to that football department. But I'm talking about like everyone from Hine, who, they highly rate, down to, the boot stutter, to the president, Mark Corder. I mean, Mark Corder, they should have just sacked last week when you said, I think we'll make finals.
He clearly was flagging his
and he goes,
delusion.
And he goes, if we won, we would have been one game outside the 8. It's like, well, Mark, where was that, mathematical acumen when the fucking salary cap was $2 million over?
Maybe that was his pre-match address. If we win this, we'll be one game outside of the 8.
And Buckley gets the focus of all this, but it's not just him. It's the whole fucking club.
No.
He's in total disarray. And they want to sell that they're in control of all this. Like, this is all part of some grander plan. I mean, Buckley, to me, each week when he comes out, he's looking more and more broken in terms of realising... I finally had the list. I probably was going to get it as good as I got it. And then they gutted it right out from under me because of their shit salary cap manager. And again, that's not his fault, I imagine. You brought up an interesting point, very angrily, where you said if you criticise Buckley or the club or whatever, you draw the the sheep. They come at you and say, well, you're not a real supporter.
Yeah, that really does irk me. I mean, you can't question anybody's love of the club or the faith they put in anything if it's in conflict with yours. Everyone's entitled to their own separate opinion. Look, and if you're happy to sit there for the next 3 years and wallow in mediocrity and not see any improvement...
No, you'll be below mediocrity.
More power to you. If you can go to bed at night and think, well, geez, at least we gave it a red-hot crack, get behind the boys, we all love them. I mean, they're great sentiments no matter what, but Jesus Christ, you've got to be realistic about this stuff. And the shit show that we're in at the moment is a byproduct of years of mismanagement that's now come home to roost. There is right for people to be angry about this, and there's right for people to expect some form of change, to flag that there is improvement on the horizon. Give us all something to look forward to. Christ, the crowd numbers this week were testimony about where people are. And this is the same thing that happened towards the end of 17. When the apathy really set in. This belief that the supporter base will rock up no matter where we are on the ladder, it's something that happened 10 years ago and it's not going to happen again. The realism of where we're at now has been reflected in the people and they're voting with their feet.
Well, the thing that I think is really wrong about the way the sheep think. I mean, they were saying, well, if you're not going to go on, when did we play? Fuck, I don't know, Saturday, Sunday. If you're not going to go on the weekend, you're not going because we're not winning and you're not a real supporter.
It's as simple as that, isn't it?
And you brought up the Collingwood Turtle had a tweet which just sort of talked about his disappointment with where the club's at. And then all the sheep came out and go, oh, well, we'll see you back when we're winning, no doubt. And then I responded just saying, well, yeah, it's not about the salary cap mismanagement. It's not about the players you trade out. It's not about the lack of the game plan. It's not about the way you mishandled the Do Better report. It's not about any of all this shit going on. It's just about the wins in your fucking minds. And the thing that really annoys me, the thing that's really fucking moronic is that, hey, if you're just meant to accept everything, then all you people who love Eddie Maguire, he never would have came on board because you'd have just had to accept the mismanagement in the 90s, taking the club downhill. Eddie should have not come and challenged him because it's like, just accept what's there, okay? Just leave it. You got to be satisfied with the status quo. That's the prevailing attitude there. So you can never challenge or question anything. You just got to take what it is, no matter how shit, because you have that stupid belief that one day things will be better. And you know what? It doesn't fucking work that way because clubs like Carlton are proving, Melbourne did it for quite a while. You can get all the draft picks and all that in there, but if it doesn't click, sometimes it just doesn't click. And when it is working well, you shouldn't fucking sabotage yourselves, but you should definitely not have the arrogance to sort of have an okay list, because I don't think the list under Buckley was great. Again, not Buckley's fault. The list they assembled for him, they had, and I've defended Mason Cox, but they had an American basketball as their full forward. They had a rookie as their rookie defender as their centre half forward. The two fullbacks they had to get from Melbourne, and Bulldogs are basically cast-offs. They've done really well for us. Thank you to Dunny and to Roughhead. But I'm just sort of saying, in terms of their list management, it's like, shouldn't you be addressing these positions through the draft and getting the best talent in? Wouldn't you rather have, a Ben King at full forward rather than
damn straight
a speculative, international pick? And, Cox has done well for us. And again, I feel bad for Cox because, we deliver the ball so poorly and then he doesn't take miracle marks and kick 9 goals every week and everyone's going, oh, well, he's shit. It's like, maybe look at the service coming in.
Well, Moore's proving that.
Yeah, and it's this whole thing of if you never hold anyone accountable, then nothing will ever change and it's just going to go to shit. And clubs have proven this. And again, it happened at Carlton too. Look, Carlton is effectively in the hole that they've dug because of the hubris of the previous, the John Elliott administration, which was really powerful in its first 10, 15 years, and then it just started to slide, and then by the end, they were imploding. They had salary cap issues, they Elliott got ousted, they brought in the coaches trying to be a stopgap saviour in terms of Dennis Pagan, they traded in all these players, it didn't work for them, they've been at the bottom of the ladder, they picked up all these number 1 picks, still didn't work for them, and it just shows you, well, hey, if it goes to shit, it can really go to shit for longer than 2-3 years. But all those people running around going, we can turn it around really quickly. Well, hopefully we can, but geez, with the pieces we have in place, I can't see it fucking happening.
Yep.
If you were to change the coach, let me throw some names at you. Would you use on the existing assistants?
Sorry, say it again. What was the second part?
If we're going to change the coach,
yep.
Would you use one of the existing assistants?
Oh, no.
Sam
I was going to
Mitchell.
say fuck no, but that seemed a little bit too heavy-handed.
Oh, fuck you. Let's get angry. Sam Mitchell.
Yes, definitely.
Alistair Clarkson.
Yes.
Gary Hocking.
Left field, but he seemed to do well with the midfield when he was with us, so yes.
My one question with both Clarkson and Mitchell is Clarkson pioneered that kicking game at Hawthorn, that short kicking game, which is what Buckley's tried to copy to an extent. And I'd hate for him to come and go, well, that's my one trick, let's keep doing it. And I'd hate for Mitchell, who was cultivated under that tutelage, to go, well, that's my one trick also.
See, I would do something, though. Like, if I was to bring in someone like Mitchell, who's got some assistant coaching experience across 2 clubs, I think it is, you'd look to go and maybe poach someone like Choco or someone who's doing great guns with Melbourne at the moment, apparently, to come in and sort of oversee that coaching role and be that mentor type role, maybe the year of experience, all that sort of thing. I think that would be the balance moving forward. Now, Ross Lyon was interviewed, I think, on...
I was going to say, my last name here is Ross Lyon.
That strikes fear into me because, I mean, seriously, if you wanted someone who personified Collingwood's grand final success rate, he's the perfect coach to do that. Now, I don't think he'd be as bad as any of that. There are elements that I'd probably consider that he ticks boxes with, that he's what we want. He's a coach from a non-Collingwood environment. He does seem to bond well with the players. I just don't know whether his game style...
Well, Matthew Pavlich rated him the best coach he played under, and Pavlich was at Fremantle, so he played under 29 coaches.
But they got that really low-scoring, very defensive...
Let me stop you. 2008, Saints averaged 96.6 points. 2009, they averaged 99.8 points. They got more than 100 points on 14 occasions. In 2010, they averaged 86 points, so they did drop, but that was the year that Riewoldt tore his hamstring from the bone and was out the bulk of the year. Fremantle, so I'm only picking the years where they're like on the up. 2014, Freo averaged 92 points. In 2015, when Freo made the grand final, averaged 84.4 points. So he's not as low scoring as people think. People think he's playing 9-10 goals.
I mean, it sounds a lot too, because we're averaging about 60 points at the moment.
We kicked 7 goals, didn't we, on the week? We didn't even get to 60. But if you look at the Saints one, so 96 and 99.8, 100 points on 14 occasions. So his sides do score, but for some reason people... And I started to talk about this on Footy Classified, because he talks about the way the media dictate the narrative, irrespective of what the reality is. And he said the narrative was that they wanted to say I was a defensive, stodgy coach, but I was actually kicking scores. The one thing
personally.
Yeah, personally. The one thing I do recall with Lyon a few years ago, when he was at Fremantle, I think they said in the first half of the year, they average scores were higher in the second half. So they were suggesting, does the game plan wear on them, and as the season goes on, and then they just sort of run out of puff. But I love Lyon. I have heard he's, or I do question whether he can rebuild the club, because he hasn't really done that. With St Kilda he came, and there was like a existing playing list that was pretty entrenched, and same at Freo. So I do query, can he govern the young?
Well,
players?
that's what I listened to an interview he did with Triple M. That's where he works on the weekend that came out today. And he was talking about the need for how important assistant coaches were. And he said, look, he was asked a question about, would you be interested in the Collingwood job? And when he did sort of answer in the positive, it'd be under the grounds of who the assistants were that he could get that were available that fit the particular need he wanted. Because he was saying, like, the coaching landscape certainly changed a lot now with the reduction of numbers, that the importance of these people on the sides who are going to have to do a lot more heavy lifting is going to make his job a little bit easier. So, yeah, you do wonder whether there's a possibility that the senior coach is stretched too thin these days because of what's happened in the last 18 months. But, it was interesting what he was saying around that clearly...
I'll tell you what frustrates me with the existing coaching setup. So you have Buckley, who's been there since 2012. I think Harvey's been there for the same amount, and then Sanderson came a little bit into it. And then obviously we had other assistants who've now been cut. I think we had 26. Remember, we had the 26 coaches or whatever. I would always think that, you know what? Whatever the number is that assist you, half of them should be mainstays, like your Robert Harveys and Brenton Sandersons and all that. Guys who pretty much are professional assistants and probably aren't going to get senior jobs, or even guys who've been senior coaches but now are assistant coaches. And then the other half should be guys who are pretty fresh out of the game and really fucking ambitious and want their own coaching job. And you should get that good mix of stability and
hunger.
And the senior coach should be the guy who is the overseer there and going, okay, I've got to make these work together. I've got to take the best of both ideas and I've got to find compromises. But you should have that constant injection of new ideas, fresh talent, all that. The biggest problem with the Buckley, Harvey, Sanderson triumvirate is just, how long have you been together? What could you tell me? What could you suggest that's going to be fucking new?
I heard it's that bad that they're finishing each other's sentences these days.
That's a good one. One thing I think might salvage the club is the Collingwood button.
I was going to say, do you want me to get the nuke out again?
So, this really surprises me that they released this thing. It costs like $49, I believe. I believe it could be more.
It's on special, though. Limited stock's getting quick.
Because it said it was like $50 off. And that has things like, it's only got one quote here. You know, we'll put up the graphic. Side button. It's sidey. Get me out of this thing.
I think he's talking about the contract. Or the club, yeah, could be.
So you push this button and it gives you quotes from players.
What an innovation.
Who the fuck thought this was a good idea at this time, at any time, but particularly at this time? Who would have thought that you'd fucking release something...
And they justified it by saying that the fans have been clamouring for more engagement from the club. Well, I was thinking a fridge magnet that talks to me with random shit would be exactly what I was looking for as a portal into the club.
Well, I can only imagine that the people who are clamouring for more engagement have fecal fetishes where they like to be shit on. Because that's what this is. Sure, Peter Dacos had this, I can't remember what it was called, but he had this stats thing years ago. It was an electronic thing where you could count stats. Why don't you get a player like Peter Dacos or someone to put his name to a product like something like that, saying, oh, you have a young child playing football, why not count his stats with the Peter Dacos stat meter or whatever the fuck, you know? Something that actually, that would be a little bit more engaging, a little bit more interesting than a fucking Collingwood button.
You really wonder, again, like what you're saying on the back of, you know, who decided this. Did they go out to the fan base and say, is this what you want? Is this the sort of thing that you're interested in? Was there any research done? We should help them out on research. We're aces at it. But seriously, did you engage the fan base? Is this what you think they needed? I don't know why I'm looking at you in the camera like you're going to answer, but it's not what I've been ever thinking I should have. I've needed on the fridge. Have you? You know, I've looked at the fridge in between the fish and chip shop and the pizza takeaway magnet, thinking what would complement this is a talking magpie button. I can't believe that. Like, all right, so how long has this been in development? I mean, you're
the tech head. How long do you think this would take to...
Well, no, it's got Atari written next to it, so it's obviously been a while.
you think like, if someone came to me and said, what do you think Collingwood needs to do? I'd say, 1, get some fucking fresh ideas in a coaching box. 2, get your fucking salary cap in order. 3, get your fucking list management in order. And then probably rated about 2 to 3 million would be... Maybe start fucking around with little toys that no one gives a fuck about.
Jeez, I thought you were going to say 4 there for a minute.
It's really... This is how out of touch you are with your fan base. That and like the digital media manager, they... Just see where they showed the banner where they misspelt tonight? And they said, this harkens back to 2018 because we misspelt the word tonight on the banner then against Carlton, and that started our run to the grand final.
Yeah, that was exactly the thing that started our run.
That's what...
Misspelling tonight.
Your omens and you're really fucking... What? We on the way to a grand final now? We're going to call you out on that when it's mathematically impossible for us to make a grand final, which is like about 2 weeks.
2 minutes. But seriously, though, again, like, why would you be drawing attention to another year that you lost a grand final? Like, what's the sense in reminding people of that fact? Oh, look, let's go out and make the banner a fuck up like we did 2 years ago because we made finals that year. And how did we finish that year?
And
fuck.
The other thing, too, is there's a stereotype of Collingwood supporters being morons. Well, geez, let's not perpetuate that at all by misspelling tonight. For fuck's sake! Fucking hell, this club's... It is seriously... I am halfway, you get these petitions, and I'm really close, really fucking close to starting a petition that we just disband you and just save millions of people the misery of having to support you year in, year out, and watching this shit. If you seriously think this is in touch with anything relating to football, to being an elite organisation or anything, you seriously are fucked up on a level that cannot be measured by any metric.
Anyway, I'm just about to press the button and find out what the score is going to be to Niggett.
Do you care about the jumper debate about Port Adelaide? And
couldn't give a fuck.
I couldn't give a fuck, but they are starting to be annoying with it. So
there's one thing on this though. The president, the little P, he could have made a stand on this. That could have been his first moment where he showed some kahunas and said, maybe Port, you can go fuck yourself. But what did he end up saying? It was just something like, well, wishy-washy this, wishy-washy there.
It was very typical.
We'll look at it again.
Speak.
We'll look at it next year or something. Oh, we've given it, we said no this year, but we might think about it next year or something like that.
I don't really care about the jump, but I actually am getting really annoyed by their going on. They came into an organisation that already had these trademarks in place, and they came in with the understanding that you can't use them, and now 20 years or 30 years later, whatever fucking long it is, they're running around going, oh, we never knew any about this. Why aren't you letting us use them? So they're actually getting really bothersome. I really think when we play North Melbourne this week, we should wear a clash jumper, and it should be Port Adelaide, the SANFL Port Adelaide's jumper.
With a piping strike.
Yeah. So we should wear that, and we should just go, oh, do you have a problem with us wearing your jumper? Well, that's being a little bit short-sighted,
You
aren't
seriously get fucking sick of talking about it every year. And the thing is, the AFL said, oh, we've said no this year. So they're going to do this again at some point, probably very early in next year. And the circles will go round and round and round again. The media will have a bit of a tug for 2 weeks about it. Kochi will he'll puff up. What does he do? He puffs up.
I don't know what he does.
I know, he just, I don't know. Is he...
Well, he compared Andy Maguire to Donald Trump. It's like dealing with Donald Trump.
He's probably got a funny joke then, at least.
But why would you insult Donald Trump? So we're playing North Melbourne this week.
Oh, goody.
North Melbourne are 18th. They have 0 wins and they have 49.2%.
They're just as good as us.
We are 17th. We have one...
Is there any omens about that we should know about? What happened? What happened last time we were 17th? Do we give away draft picks?
Probably.
Do we trade our players? Do we blow the salary cap?
Probably done it all.
It's too hard to fit all that in a banner, surely.
1 win. Thanks, Carlton. 83.4%.
Cop that, North.
I don't know who the fuck we're going to play. I don't know who we're going to pick.
Even if we lose, we still win.
Yeah. So unless North keep us goalless and win by about 5 goals,
Don't say it out too loud.
North Melbourne have been competitive in first halves and then they tend to fall away. So they haven't been able to see out a game.
Well, the funny thing is they were competitive for about 3 quarters this week and then fell away. So we're probably going to go the full 4 quarters this week.
We're competitive for about 3 and a bit of quarters, so like we're a little bit ahead.
Over 3 weeks.
Yeah. If we lost this, You can't see the coaching staff survive.
Oh, it'd be difficult. Very difficult.
At the start of the year, when I looked at the fixture for about the first 7 weeks, I really thought it would be 1 to 5 or 2 to 4 after the first 6 games, and then we'd play these two and we'd get wins, and it would get a little bit respectable, and then we'd just struggle. I really didn't anticipate we'd lose to Gold Coast. So
I did.
You did. I mean, you had the body of evidence of how shit we'd become. It's really at a dire situation. They look so lost and disconnected from one another.
And that's the problem is that, what are you going to do and look at each other and say, how do we galvanise ourselves for this? Do we make a statement? What statement are we making though? Because you're probably going to win this one game. The sheep will start bleating that everything's back on track, and then you'll probably be obliterated for the next 3 or 4, and you're back to square one.
I think the biggest problem, and I said this in between seasons, is, and I don't think they factored this in, is Jaden Stevenson, Adam Treloar, and Tom Phillips going to be running around every week this year. And it's going to be a constant reminder, if they have good seasons, it's going to be a constant slap in the face to every supporter who love these players and is now looking at the club and going, well, you inject those 3 players back into the side. And
what about a few more games this year?
It'd probably be... I mean, I think the biggest problem's still system, so even if they were there, we'd struggle to an extent, but...
Oh, you would have battled across the line on a couple of those games. Though.
But you think like you would have beaten Brisbane.
In that case, yeah.
You probably would have beaten Essendon. And then, you might have beaten GW. So you probably might be, we won 6. You might be 4-3. You probably would be 4-3. And people will be going out there, we're taking a step back to take 2 steps forward. No, there's not 2 steps forward for quite a while now. There's probably further steps back. I will be lobbying the AFL to create positions under 18, 19, 20, 21. I just want to see how far down we can go. It's really also, I think, a reminder to existing players who just sort of look at these guys and how they're doing and just sort of think, this is wrong. This is just fucking totally wrong. It just isn't the way it should be. We bonded to these guys. We lost the grand final together. We thought we'd win a flag together. We bonded and all. We developed our camaraderie, and you split us up. And now I'm just seeing these 3 guys run around, and it feels fucking wrong.
And one of them's playing finals this year.
Yeah. So, what's your tip?
North by 184 points.
I'll tip Collingwood by 28 points, but I couldn't really give a fuck.
No, well, good shot. This is the way I expect it to pan out. We may have covered this before. In the dying seconds of the game, when we're 5 points up, we'll cough it up. It'll go up the other end, and Stevenson will kick the goal.
Well done, Jaden. Final thoughts?
Stevenson will kick the winner.
That's it from us. Like, subscribe, do all that sort of stuff. Hit us up on social media.
Or hit us up.
Buy us beer.
Do we drink beer?
No. Later.
See ya.